We have a couple weeks left in the college football season, and we have a number of teams that are still alive in the playoff hunt. Every week, we've been eliminating teams from playoff contention. By my count, there are now 9 teams who still have a realistic shot of reaching the college football playoff. Last week, I had 11, meaning there were 2 teams eliminated from contention this past weekend. Penn State and Ole Miss lost, so I have them falling out of the playoff picture. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 9 teams I believe are still alive and looking at what needs to go right for them to make it to the college football playoff. We'll start with Georgia, who is still undefeated and ranked number 1 in the entire country. They clinched a spot in the SEC title game this weekend, so their chances are extremely high. They have 2 games left in the regular season, and they're going to be facing number 8 Alabama in the SEC title game. I think for Georgia, as long as they end the year with 1 loss, they'll be in regardless of where it comes. If they lose this weekend to Tennessee but beat Alabama in the SEC title game, I think they'll be in. If they win their final 2 regular season games but lose to Alabama in the SEC title game, I think Georgia is still going to be in as well. So essentially, as long as Georgia finishes the season 2-1 with any combination, they'll be just fine. Ohio State moved to 10-0 on the season with their 35-point victory against Michigan State this past weekend. They play Minnesota on Saturday, and that should be another easy victory for the Buckeyes. So it all comes down to next week's matchup on the road at number 3 Michigan. If Ohio State wins, they'll play in the Big Ten title game, and I think regardless of what happens in that game, they'll be in. But if they lose to Michigan next weekend, the Buckeyes aren't going to play in the Big Ten title game, and they're probably going to need a lot of help around them. I still think there's a realistic possibility where both Michigan and Ohio State make it into the college football playoff, but again, that's asking for chaos around them to go down. So for Ohio State, just beat Michigan, and you should be in. Pretty much everything I just said about Ohio State, apply that to Michigan. They go on the road to Maryland this weekend, and although that should be a slightly difficult game, the Wolverines should come out victorious. Then they host number 2 Ohio State next weekend at home. For the Wolverines, if they beat the Buckeyes, they're probably in the playoff regardless of what happens in the Big Ten title game. But if they lose to the Buckeyes next week and they can't play in that conference title game, well, they're going to need a lot of help around them. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I really think Florida State needs to win out the rest of the way to reach the college football playoff. This upcoming weekend is an easy win against North Alabama, and next week at Florida should be a difficult contest, but they should be favored. Then they'll play in the ACC title game, likely against Louisville. If Florida State loses any of these games, I just can't see them getting in because I think other teams are going to leap over them. As of right now, Florida State is ranked number 4, so if they lose a game, they're going to fall a couple of spots, especially if they lose in that ACC title game. So if Florida State's able to win out, they should have a spot locked up. Washington is 10-0 on the season after their thrilling victory over number 18 Utah this weekend. Their schedule is still difficult as they got to go on the road to number 11 Oregon State this weekend, and then they end with the Apple Cup against Washington State. For the Huskies, that's a tough 2-game slate, and then they likely have to face Oregon again in the Pac-12 title game. For the Huskies, although they're undefeated, I also don't think they can afford a loss the rest of the way. If they were to lose this weekend to Oregon State, that'll drop them a couple of spots. Or if they lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 title game, they'll likely be the number 5 ranked team still, and losing in that game is going to drop them out of the playoff talks. So for the Huskies, win out, and you're probably going to be in as well. We're done with the undefeated teams as we finish this list with all the 1-loss teams. I think the Oregon Ducks are a top 4 team in the country, as I've had them ranked at number 4 in my past 2 top 25 videos. They play Arizona State this weekend, and that shouldn't be an easy game by any means. Then they host number 11 Oregon State, another difficult matchup. If Oregon wins those 2 games, they're likely going to face Washington in the Pac-12 title game. If Oregon's able to finish the season winning those 3 games, I think there's no way you can keep them out of the college football playoff. Before we get to the rest of my video, I'd like to share with you guys how you can win money during the college football season. I've partnered with Underdog Fantasy to bring you this amazing deal. If you download the Underdog app and use promo code Harris, they'll match your first deposit up to $500. Yep, they're giving you up to $500 of free money. I've had a lot of success all season with college football and the NFL, and you can do the exact same with Underdog Fantasy. So make sure to use promo code Harris for a 100% deposit match up to $500. You can also sign up using the link in my description as well. 2 weeks in a row, Texas has kept their playoff hopes alive as they had a 3-point victory on the road at TCU. They end the season with Iowa State and Texas Tech, 2 very winnable games. As of right now, it's looking like Texas is probably going to play in the Big 12 title game, but their opponent is still a major question mark. If the Longhorns are able to win out, they're going to be Big 12 champions with only one loss. But is that going to be enough to get them into the college football playoff? I'm not exactly certain. I think there's going to be a Pac-12 team that's ahead of them. There's a chance that you have the two Big 10 teams that are making cases, and of course there's Florida State as well. So for the Longhorns, I think they really got to dominate these next 3 games and pick up as many style points as they possibly can. Although Alabama is ranked number 8, they actually have a pretty easy path to reaching the college football playoff. They end the season with Chattanooga and Auburn, 2 very easy wins, but they end the season in the SEC title game against number 1 Georgia. For Alabama, it's pretty simple. If you lose, your playoff chances are completely shot. But if you win and take down the number 1 team in the country, ending their 30-game winning streak, there's no way you can keep them out of the college football playoff. So if Alabama wins out, they're definitely in. Somehow, someway, Louisville is still alive in the playoff hunt. Although out of all the teams we talked about in today's video, I think their chances are the smallest. They end the season at Miami and at home against Kentucky, 2 pretty good opponents. Then they're likely going to play Florida State in the ACC title game. If they're able to win out and take down the Seminoles, then Louisville is going to be right there knocking on the door. But I just don't see how they can get in when you're looking at all the teams ahead of them. I mean, they're going to have to ask for a lot of chaos, like Alabama losing, Texas losing, Oregon losing another game, Washington losing another game, that kind of chaos. Sure, it could definitely happen, but I think it's a long shot. But for right now, their chances are not zero. When looking at these 9 teams that are remaining, there are a lot of chaotic scenarios that can still happen. But honestly, when looking at these top 8 teams, there are a lot of different ways where they could still be alive in the final week. Hopefully we get that, because I want the final playoff rankings to be really chaotic. I mean, just think about this one for example. What happens if Alabama beats Georgia? Both of those teams would be in. Then you have one of the Big 10 teams in Ohio State or Michigan, or potentially both. Then you can have an undefeated Florida State, an undefeated Washington, and a 1-loss Big 12 winner in Texas who beat Alabama. All of the different scenarios are crazy, and there's a lot that can happen over these next couple of weeks. So what are your thoughts on these 9 teams that still have a shot of reaching the college football playoff? As of right now, who do you think the top 4 teams are going to be, and who do you think is a potential sleeper that can make the playoff? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.